Hey, welcome back to Wicked Smart Golf, aka Wicked Smat. This is your host, Michael Leonard, and this podcast is committed to helping you play better golf without changing your swing. Today, I am really excited to bring back on Dr. Izzy Justice. He is a sports neuroscientist. He is the author of books like Golf EQ, GYRA Golf, one of my favorite books of all time. And today, we're going to be talking about Your Brain Swings Every Club, as well as a mental performance coach. Dr. Justice, thanks so much for being here, man.
Oh, Michael, it's such a pleasure to be here. I enjoyed last time with you. You're awesome, and just very honored that you have me on your show. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was a no-brainer, and we got to start with GYRA Golf before we get into the new book. Because again, I recommend this book to my audience as much as possible. If you're a tournament golfer, if you just want to understand how your brain works, like it's such a good book. And for me, I use it every round. So I wanted to let you know that I always have my yellow and my red card with me at all times. So they have helped me win tournaments. They've helped me finish in top fives. They've helped salvage bad rounds. So I love the neuro hacks that you bring because they're brain based, but they're super easy to apply. So even if you're not wicked smart like you are, us everyday person can still apply a lot of the stuff. So let's get into some of the kind of neuro hacks and background of your new book because I know you went, I think 2020 was GYRA Golf and 2025 here for the new one. I think the first thing when I was reading it and I binged it just like the other ones in a day, the first thing I was feeling is like, wow, we are so overwhelmed as a species because of this stupid, awesome device. It's great, but it's also killing us, it seems like. So the notes I had here, it said the average EEG of a normal person today is the equivalent of a schizophrenic in the 40s or 50s. So talk about what our phone is doing to our brain.
Yeah, some very quick background. If you track almost all attributes of human behavior and human performance, specifically from the year 2010 onwards, there's a almost mirror line correlation between the number of devices that since 2020 have exploded, 2010 have exploded to a lot of the mental health challenges that we're having, including just simple focus, ADD, ADHD, sleep issues, sleep apnea, all those kinds of things. I mean, even things like divorce rates and conflict and but in the year 2010, I may get some of these numbers wrong, but in the year 2010, there were about 3 billion devices in the world for about 6 billion people. Today, in the year 2025, there are 8 billion people and over 30 billion devices. So if you do the math, each human being roughly has about three devices. That's not entirely true because I have 10 in my house. So, you know, but what is very unique about, and if, oh my goodness, Michael, if there's any big point out of this entire podcast that I want to make, it's this one, and it's right out of the gates. We have found ourselves, all of us that are on planet Earth right now, in a very, very unique human experience. How we are living today, no other generation of human beings has had to face. And really, what it is that these devices, they're really good. I mean, it has our email, our calendar, our health records, our banking system, our text messaging. We need them to function. We need them to get information, to give information. So they're not going anywhere any soon. And as you noted, there are more and more things that you can do on your phone now, which means our dependency on them is going to grow, not diminish. But these devices are creating constant stimulation. Like our brain is constantly getting fed with the stimulation. And matter of fact, if we ever are lucky enough to have a free moment, we convert that free moment instantly to grabbing the phone and saying, okay, what am I missing here? What else can I go consume? And so our brains are not designed. I mean, we have electricity in our brain. It is soft tissue. It's not hardwired. It's not a hard drive like a gig drive or a RAM. It is soft, tissue and it's electricity. And our brain weighs 3.5 pounds. It's really tiny. It's caged in a skull. Like all this information has to go somewhere. And so our brains are overstimulated, which means that, in the 1940s and 50s, when we were measuring EEG, and this is from Dr. Daniel Amen, who's done almost over 80,000 brain scans. But if you measure the EEG, so EEG is the volume and intensity of electricity in your brain in the 1940s and 50s, that's the same EEG as a normal person today.
That's just abs.
Meaning
Yeah.
It's crazy, but our brains are not designed to live in the world that we live in, which means the amount of time that we have to focus on anything is somewhere around 3 to 5 seconds. So just think about that. In a 45-second pre-shot routine, if you divide 45 by, let's just say 5, that means 9 times in 45 seconds, you will be distracted by yourself. And I always give people, Michael, the example that, okay, let's say that you're about to make a putt, right? And in your backstroke, someone in the gallery or anywhere else yell, "Ah!" It would be very understandable that you would flinch. But if you think about it, why would you flinch? I mean, a noise came from there, like nothing physically touched you. Well, because that auditory stimulation goes to the brain, your brain has to process it while it's trying to do something neuromuscular. It loses the target, so it doesn't know what to do, and then you kind of flinch. Now, imagine that if that makes sense, imagine that you are doing that to yourself every 5 seconds. That's
So
the real battle that we have in a non-reactionary sport like golf right now.
that, I mean, I just can imagine certain putts I've had where I've done that to myself and I've kind of missed something or some little voice pops up or something. And yeah, like you said, it's different if it's a maintenance card or, somebody hitting another tee box that's close by, but we're doing this to ourselves. So we obviously, like you said, we can't stop using the phones and devices. So what are a couple of things we can do to kind of gain control? Is it, not touching them the first hour or last hour of the day? What are maybe just a couple little things to kind of help our brain cope with all this technology?
Yeah. So, I tell people that most poor shots occur before the backstroke or a backswing. Your brain is already processing something other than the sensory input. So, one is I think all of us need a new language, because the language that we have was created by our Bronze Age ancestors who didn't know where the sun went at night. So things like lack of focus or panic or, I mean, we use these terms all the time, but there are over 600 emotional and behavioral labels. None of us learned them in a formal classroom. Like, did you take a class and say this is the difference between mad and angry and annoyed?
Definitely not.
Like, I don't know what the difference between those three is, and we could argue. So I think we need a much simpler language to, first of all, give to ourselves so that we can label what's going on. There's a big difference between someone saying, don't leave it short versus make a smooth stroke.
Hmm.
Right? Don't leave it short, using a neuroscience, that's a red distraction because even the word don't, it's coming from a memory. And that memory is carrying a lot of frequency to it because clearly you left something short before and it cost you, and your brain is saying, don't do this again. Now, making a smooth stroke is also a distraction, but it's a far less spike in the
Hmm.
brain. So I think having a language, which is what I talk about in my book, like red, yellow, green. So I've replaced, traditional language with colors because even the terms that we're using, they're so judgmental. They carry so much frequency to them. And I want to take judgment out of it. And I want to have people have the same reaction. Like if I put a thermometer in you and your temperature says 104, you don't say, "Oh, well, I'm a bad person now," or
Hmm.
I'm horrible. You say, "No, I have a fever. Let me go do something to fix my fever." Right? It's a report and a diagnosis, and then a treatment. That's where I want athletes to get to. Say, "Oh, I'm red." No, I'm red not because I have a character flaw, because I'm human. My brain is doing its job. It's trying to help me to protect me from not making the same mistake I did 3 holes ago,
Hmm.
even though I got this. But my brain is telling me, hey, let's not go through that trauma again. So I think it starts with language. And then the second thing is, I always tell people to break down their swings into, 0 seconds when you start your backstroke or your backswing, and then go out before 45 seconds before.
Hmm.
And there's a negotiation that we can do. So from second 45, before you start your backstroke or your backswing, till about second 20, so 25 seconds, you can have a lot of these technical thoughts. You can say, okay, I want to feel this, don't do that, don't do that.
Hmm.
But those last, 10, 20 seconds, it has got to be something along the lines of your intention, what you want to do with this ball, and where you want to send it, target
Hmm.
oriented. That is sensory input. I want to hit a cut over that tree so that it finishes there on that spot on the green. That is high quality input. That input is what our muscles need. They respond to that. When you say don't hit it left, or make sure you do this, or keep your elbow tucked in, or the million other technical thoughts, those are such higher frequency thoughts that they completely dampen our sensory input. So even though you look at the target one last time, the intensity of the thoughts in your head are so high that they cannot retain that target. So I always tell people, I've said this on your show before, in my humble opinion, the hardest thing about golf is that it is a target sport where your eyes are not on the target. Like there's no other sport. It's what other sport, like a soccer player, a basketball player, would you put blinds on and say, okay, hey, make this free throw or kick this ball? Like, wait a minute, where am I supposed to kick it? Like I'm blind.
Yeah.
But in golf, your eyes are down on the ball. So you have to train your brain to, even though your eyes are down, and they have to be down because you want a solid strike, right? And you really want to make sure that that solid strike is connected to some destination out there.
Hmm.
And I can do a quick exercise with you. Can I do one with you right now?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so you just told me that you're in Scottsdale, Arizona, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. How far are you from? You going to answer that?
Yeah, I guess I need the destination.
Okay. Let me ask you that question again. How far are you from New York City?
Couple thousand miles.
Okay. Do you see the difference between those two questions? When I said, how far are you from, you were waiting for me to finish that sentence and your brain was confused.
I
Now,
was
as
really
soon as,
hoping that the interview didn't stall.
yeah. But then when I said New York City, did your mind just not draw a line going from Scottsdale, kind of
Yep.
northeast, and it began to kind of map everything out, right?
100%.
Exactly. So you see what a destination did in your brain? It provided clarity. It connected everything. And there are these neurons in our brain. They're called great neurons. The lady that invented or discovered them won a Nobel Prize. But these great neurons, which is essentially a destination neuron, they are necessary for us to create a grid that creates scale, how far something is. And scale creates force. When you know how far something is, then you know how hard or soft to hit something, right?
Hmm.
So if you're over the ball and you're fighting your brain between a technical thought and a bad thought, one of the best things to do is take a look at the target and say, okay, replace those with that's where I want the ball to go. You
Hmm.
may not hit a perfect shot, but I guarantee you, if the target is playing in your brain, if those great neurons are activated, your dispersion will be much, much, much smaller.
Yeah, that when I was reading the book, that was like the one thing that instantly stuck out to me was that you said it's the hardest target sport, and I never really thought about it. Like you said, we're not even looking at the target. And you said recalling is the best skill. And one thing that I am going to immediately put into my game is how you talked about pick a target early in the routine. I thought
Yes.
that was really, really good. So I preach routines on here. I just had Dr. Michael Larden, who wrote Golf's Mental Scorecard, talking about routines, and we've had a lot of people talk about routines. I preach them as well, but there's so many, nuances to each of them. And obviously, we talk about targets and getting clear on it. But I like how you said pick a target early on in your full swing and with short game and putting. Why is it so important to pick that early on? Because you kind of referenced it to an example of like painting on the wall. I thought that was really, really
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and probably one of the key points in this new book, Your Brain Swings Every Club. Okay, so our retina, people think that the images that come through our eyes, these photons that are coming through our eyes, our pupil, they go to the retina, and that's the final destination. Our retina is not the final destination; it's the interim destination. It's just a screen where an image first lands. But your brain has to make sense of what it is seeing. And so there's an optic nerve that goes from your eye to the back of your brain to your visual cortex. And there are many screens there. So that's the real screen where the image is then made sense of. Now, just to make things simple, let's call that screen the V1 screen. Okay. Now, we distract ourselves roughly every 3 to 5 seconds. That's point number one.
Hmm.
Point number two is our eyes are moving 3 times per 1 second. And point number three is that we roughly have about 250 degrees of view in front of our eyes. That means the span of what we can see. So imagine your eyes are moving 3 times per second. And by the way, we're designed to do that because it's how we protect ourselves. It's how we recognize danger. So that's the factory setting of the brain. So number one, you're distracting yourself every 3 seconds. Your eyes are moving 3 times per second. That basically means that what is the final image in your V1 cortex is changing. So early target selection, and this research has been done by dozens of neuroscientists in other sports, that the earlier that you pick a target and then you reinforce that target. So the first time that you pick the target early, think of that as the first coat of paint if you're painting the wall in your living room. We all know that the first coat of paint is kind of the light one, right? Then you put another coat, then it gets thick. Then you put another coat, and then boom, now it's really shining. And now, like the color is really the richness of the color stands out. So the earlier that you pick a target, I'm going to start it off that tree and cut it off that. I'm going to hit it my putt over that blade of grass. The earlier in the process that you pick a target, the more opportunity you have to put more coats of paint, so that when you finally move your head back down at the ball, you don't lose the target.
Mm.
All right. So early target selection allows the brain to put more coats of paint. And in a sport where you have to recall the target because your eyes are not on it, early target selection is key. Conversely, the closer to your backstroke that you pick a target, the lower the coat of paint is, the higher the probability that you're going to lose it, unless the target just happened to be amazing, unless there's this big patch of grass and it's got a color contrast and a shape contrast. If you're lucky enough to get a target like that, then yeah, you can pick it anytime you want to. But golf is played over 500 acres. Every shot you hit is going to have a different target depending on the time of the day, the sunshine, the cloudy, fall season, spring season. We're moving. So target selection, and there's a whole chapter in my book about, a lot of times people pick a target, and I debunk this myth about small target, small miss. Small target, small myth there's no research that can prove that, but it sounds sexy, right? Small target, small miss.
Yep.
But small target also means that you can lose it. A small
Mm.
target from 300 yards away, you will lose it. Now, the better way of saying that is a contrasting target, the smaller the miss. Now, that doesn't sound sexy.
Hmm.
Now, a contrast means that it stands out. There's something about what you're looking at that makes it stand out. It's a brown branch over a green tree.
Mm.
So it's a dead branch. So the brown and the gray of the branch against a backdrop of a green tree, that's a contrast. You will remember that, right?
Hmm.
So it's whatever stands out, whatever has a contrasting enough, shape, color, size kind of a thing out there or on the putting green. Those are the targets that your brain is likely to remember.
Yeah, that one was the first thing I'd written down here too, was to find contrast, because like some courses just seem to set up better for target selection than others. And so for me, I find myself, really trying to always get clear on the target, and like you said, doing it early. But like I think that's one thing I'm going to try and do is obviously get it like really really early on, so that way we can get multiple coats of paint. But it is like you said, it's the contrast, and it's not easy to do sometimes on some courses. Like if they're really good, like I just got a chance to U.S. Open qualify at the Estancia Club. There isn't a blade of grass that's out, right? It's like so good. So let's go over how to actually pick targets for approach shots, or for tee shots, approach shots, and putting, because I think that is good. So I'm kind of with you. I'm not a big fan of the aim small, miss small. I actually like to pick like zones. So I like to find like a tree and another tree, or a cactus and another cactus, to give me like a little zone when I'm hitting driver. That seems like for me to work the best. So that's what I do off the tee. Into the green, it's not always easy though for that. So like, what would you recommend for maybe approach shots, and then putting too? Is it the blade of grass? Is it a divot? Like, what are some things that people can instantly start kind of thinking about with targets?
Sure, sure. And just so you know, I work with lots of tour guys, and the guys that have early morning tee times, like they're the first group or two out, they
Mm-hmm.
have the same problem. Because the surfaces are so smooth on the greens, it's hard to find targets.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain holes and certain shots where targets are not available. Okay, tee to green, I like targets that are above the ground.
Okay.
Okay, because it somehow matches the trajectory of the shot that you're about to hit. So
Hmm.
if you and I were live, let's say that you and I were in the same room across the table, and I had a little tennis ball in my hand, all right?
Hmm.
And I take the tennis ball and I throw it low, right? And your hands are low, like they're by your knees, and I throw it there, right? And my hands will naturally throw the tennis ball to where your hands are.
Hmm.
And you'll see that my release is really not there. Now, if you took your hands and put it above your head and say, okay, throw it there, just looking at your hands above there, my hands is going to just release
Mm.
higher
Okay.
without even thinking about it. You don't have to tell me, hey, make sure that you release your hands higher so that the ball goes over there. So I like tee to green, the targets to be above the ground. So if you're on a tee box, a bunker in the fairway is a target, but it's not the best target.
Hmm.
Right? Now, on and around the greens, I like targets on the ground because if you're chipping, pitching, you're going to land the ball here. Or if
Hmm.
you're putting, you're going to, roll the ball over a certain spot, maybe a blade of grass, maybe an old pitch mark, all those kinds of things. So one rule of thumb is tee to green. I like targets above the ground because they match the neuromuscular movement or sequencing that you want for that shot. Tee to green, I mean, you have a driver or a 3-wood or a long iron in your hand, it's
Hmm.
gonna be a full swing. Your hands are gonna finish way up here, right? So picking a target up there that matches the general flight, the
Okay.
trajectory, or even the shape are better,
That
right?
makes sense. Yeah, I think a lot of people just say, "Oh, I'm going to hit the right side of the fairway, or I'm going to, carve it off this bunker," and those are all on the ground, and so it's
Correct.
probably not as conducive. It sounds like you're saying. So save that for the short game. So with the putting specifically, because there's a lot of really good stuff with putting in here. I mean, honestly, this is like a putting masterclass. There's that's like a big one for me. Is like you're saying to pick something there, so maybe an old pitch mark, a blade of grass, the way the grain is by the cup. Do you like the target like in right in front of the ball? Is it the apex or is it the cup or a little bit of everything?
No, no, no. So that's another good question. So let me answer that question by correlating it to other sports. I've been very lucky enough to work with quarterbacks. I've been very lucky enough to work with baseball pitchers. I've been very lucky enough to work with so many other athletes where they're throwing something, usually a ball, but not always a ball, to
Hmm.
a target. And in every successful attempt, meaning you've hit the bullseye of whatever the target is, they almost always have the final destination as the target.
Okay.
If a basketball player is shooting, they're not thinking what the ball is doing from their hand to the apex. They're looking at a certain spot on the rim with which way the ball goes to,
Hmm.
right? So I am generally not a fan of picking a target close to the ball. I am a fan of picking a target close to the hole, right?
Hmm.
So especially short putts. Now,
Yeah.
long lag putts, depending on all the drama and the distance and the
Yeah.
ridges that you have to go through, lag putting is a different beast. But on putts, let's say 12 feet and in, I want you guys to pick a target in the last third.
Okay.
And you'll be amazed that if that's the target that you're holding, you will naturally apply the right amount of force because those targets are activating New York City. They're
Mm.
activating your grid neuron. And remember, it is the final destination that creates scale from here to there. That scale is what creates force, right? I
Hmm.
don't believe putting is hard. Now, some of your listeners are going to want to throw something at me, like, how dare he say something like this? But I mean, Mike, just think about this. Like,
Yeah.
I work with so many athletes whose equipment is far more complex. First of all, you're on a smooth surface. You have a short piece of equipment. This putter has barely any loft, right?
Hmm.
Everybody is quiet, right? So the hardest thing is when you look back down at the ball after that last look, are you able to activate that grid neuron? Are you able to activate that final destination?
Hmm.
Whereas most people, even at the highest levels, when they're over a putt, they're thinking, okay, go this far back, or make sure you release the putter. I mean, these thoughts are not, save them for your practice putting range, but when you're out there playing on the course,
Hmm.
you want to have no thoughts except, okay, that's where I want the ball to enter the cup. Now, sometimes you're lucky enough to find something. There's an old blade of grass, or there's
Hmm.
something. Sometimes it's the back of the cup. Sometimes it's the color contrast between the white lining and the little brown mud or gray mud surface there. But the process of finding, of searching and finding the best target is in itself a neurohack. If you're looking
Mm.
with your eyes, okay, what can I see? What can I see? Where do you think your brain is? It's here right now in this moment.
Yeah. So you're not worried about, am I going to miss this? Don't three putt this. This
Yeah,
is for the win.
yeah.
Ah, yeah.
So I try to teach my caddies and golfers at every level, like enjoy the process. That is in
Hmm.
fact the test. It's not
Right.
like soccer where you're on the same field, basketball, it's the same court, baseball, the same field. Like I work with a shortstop in the major leagues, and I mean he's on the same field now, different stadiums, but generally the same field. So for
Hmm.
him, we broke the field up into 6 zones, like back left, middle, and then back right, in the outfield. And so when he was at bat about to hit the ball, and he decided where to hit it, he would say hit it to, and we numbered them, hit it to 1, hit it to 4, hit it to 5.
Mm.
So we created this zone, and suddenly his on base percentage started to go up because he wasn't just hitting the ball, but he was hitting his ball to a destination of his choice,
Mm. Gosh,
right?
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I also wanted to ask you about the routine specifically of like looking at, well, I guess kind of two parts here. So you're talking about looking up a lot, right? Getting clear. I remember in Jira, you talked about the five doors to the brain, your five
Yeah.
senses. I love that. I use that all the time when I need to, calm down out there. And so you're talking about using your sight, right? We're using the visualization, we're getting clear on it. So why doesn't everybody do heads up putting? Just as like a, just to ask like a, kind of question. Because when I'm practicing, sometimes I will just putt with my eyes
Yeah.
up, and I seem to just kind of get to feel better. But why don't more people do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been asked that question a lot actually. And
Hmm.
so, because ultimately, from a technical perspective, the most important thing technically to do, in my
Hmm.
opinion, right? The most important thing, and frankly, the only thing technically that you need to do is to hit that ball in the center of the putter face,
Right.
right? So I have measured people while they were looking at the hole,
Mm.
and it's almost like you're fixing one problem, but you're creating a bigger problem.
Oh, okay.
The problem doesn't go away. I have found that it's far easier for the brain to hit the ball in the middle of the putter face while the target is in your mind, as opposed to looking at the target and trying to hit the ball in the middle of the putter face.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right? Because you can see the putter head, your putter head, and you can see the ball.
Hmm.
So you could do that, but you're creating another problem.
Because then you're going to hit some miss hits, and then you're going to
Yeah.
leave, if you have a 30 footer and you get one off the toe or heel and you don't have a forgiving putter, now you got 4 or 5 feet. And it's just,
Right.
yeah. Okay.
Let
So
me
that
ask
makes,
you this. Let me
hmm
ask you this. So this is not a trick question. It's going to sound like a trick question, but it's
you
not.
always, you're always testing me. I show up sharp for these
Yeah.
interviews.
All right. Would you have a normal routine on a 1 foot putt? Would you go through your full routine on a 1 foot putt?
No,
Why not?
because it's right there. Figure it out. Get it done.
Uh, 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 answer again. What is the
Uh,
real reason why you would
because
not
it's,
go
because
through?
it's, I don't have to read it. It's right there.
Why don't you have to read it?
Because it's 1 foot and it's not going to do anything.
Why would you not go through a full routine on a 1 foot putt?
Pace of play.
Nope. Because you see the target,
Okay. Gotcha.
right? Because the final destination is right there,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yep.
That's why you would not go through that routine. So the further back that you go, you are losing sight of the target,
Hmm.
right? So I am not, I know this is going to go against the grain of your last speaker and yourself, but this is a learning environment. We don't have to
Yeah.
agree on it. But I am not a fan of routines at all.
Yeah, you
I'm a
talked
fan
to yeah, you talked about that in the book. I was excited to learn that. I just want to close this loop though real quick because I know you're not a fan of routines, but I know pretty much everybody has them in a sense of I'm just trying to figure out from a visual standpoint, does it make more sense? Because I do my routines perpendicular behind the ball for putting, so I'm looking at the target the whole time. Do you think that's more beneficial than Tiger, or the guys that are doing their routines next to the ball and then kind of scooting up?
okay. The more dissimilar the target is as you're selecting it to how it'll be when you're over the ball, the less useful it will be.
Okay.
Okay. The angle that you're looking at the ball from sitting down from the ball there is not the view that your eyes are going to have when you're over the ball. Especially if you're a right-handed player and you're right eye dominant, which is what most of us are. Just think about it. Your dominant eye is farthest away from the ball, right? So you're
Hmm.
getting a very weak signal that's coming in. So I like for people to take targets really from as close to the angle of how that entry point is going to be for when you're
Hmm.
over the ball. Now, I'm not dissuading you from going behind the ball because you really want to see what the ball is going to do. And
Hmm.
there are other requirements that you need to do to pick the right target, right? Now, when I say I'm not a fan of routines, what I mean by that is that doing the same thing for every putt,
Hmm.
that's a routine.
Hmm.
Now, our brain is very sophisticated and it wanders every 3 to 5 seconds. If you've already found a target and your brain knows this is what I want to do, but then
Hmm.
you're just going through the motion, it's going to wander. I've
Right. So
literally seen
to
this
to
over and over
clarify,
again.
you're kind of talking about green reading routines versus putting routines. So if like you feel like you got the line, just like do your stuff, right? Like don't overdo it. Is that kind of what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay.
So, what I'm saying is be a slave to a process. And here's the process it's very simple find a holdable target
Hmm.
and hold it.
Okay. Love that.
So, sometimes in a 1 foot putt, I mean, you don't even need time to hold it.
Right.
It's right there.
This
So
this was the
sometimes
thing
it
you
takes 5 seconds.
right. I was going to say this was the thing you're talking about in your book. In your page 34, you're talking about the
Yes.
putting brain thoughts versus make rate. And that's I just wanted to like you
Yes.
said that the lowest the brain is or ten hertz versus the putt make rate is the highest when your ball will go over that spot and the ball will enter the hole. So it's just giving your
Correct.
mind that clarity. I just hope everybody listens to that. If you figure out the ball's going to go over that spot and it's going to enter the hole there, you're so much more likely to make those putts, especially inside
Yeah.
10 feet.
Yeah. So that sensory input, the ball's going to go over that blade of grass and from there into the hole.
Hmm.
That is a thought that you put in your brain. It's sensory thought because you're seeing it, right? The frequency of that thought is very low because there's no judgment. What did that blade of grass ever do to you? Nothing.
Right.
But there's no attachment to that blade of grass. But if you say, oh, make a smooth stroke, well, now
Mm.
you're around 20, 30 hertz because make a smooth stroke, even though it's a good thought, it's got some inventory because somewhere in the past you did not make a smooth stroke and your coach told you, hey, make sure you make a smooth stroke. So now you're having higher frequency, which means it's going to dominate sensory input. Sensory input, as amazing as they are, they're very weak. They're not as strong as a technical thought,
Hmm.
right? Because a technical thought is bringing a lot of inventory with it. It's
Hmm.
bringing past memories, past fixes, past situations. Like it's pulling in so many other thoughts. And now your brain is flooded with all of those kinds of things.
Mm.
So sensory input, especially with putting, which is what do I see and what do I want to feel?
Hmm.
So what you see is going to activate our good friends, those grid neurons. Grid neurons are going to create scale, right? Scale will naturally make your putter go as far back as it needs to go and hit the
Hmm.
ball with the force that it needs to be hit with.
Okay.
You don't have to calculate it.
Hmm. So we don't want technical putting thoughts. We just want to focus on where's it going over the blade of grass and where's it going in the hole. That is going to keep
There's
our
no athlete,
brainwaves
there's no
lower, and we're going to
athlete,
make more putts.
there is no athlete in any sport that is throwing something to a target that has a technical thought. Do you think when Tom Brady's going and he gets the ball from the center and he's saying, okay, keep your elbow low, keep your elbow low, you think that's what he's doing?
Yeah.
You think when a baseball pitcher on the mound goes back and decides he's going to throw a curveball in his backswing, his windup, he's saying, okay, make sure that your elbow is here, your hip is over there.
Hmm.
No. You think when Steph Curry is shooting the ball, he's saying, okay, make sure that your chest is square. No.
I just wanted you to say
Sensory
it because
dominant. They're
you're the
athletes.
that because so golfers are like the one athlete that try and always incorporate swing thoughts or putting thoughts, and it just doesn't. When I'm playing my best, I'm not thinking about any of that. I mean, you mentioned too, like your goal is chasing 10 hertz, right? That's like the lowest brainwave, and you said you're calm, focused, feel slow, effortless, not thinking
Yeah.
free. You summed it up perfectly. That to me is when I'm playing my best. I'm not thinking, let's get this, position here. Let's hit the putt on this angle. Like you said, I'm trying to just be focused. Everything's kind of moving slow, just effortless. And so I just want
Yeah.
people to hear
And
that. Like,
yeah. Well, just for the record, nobody, Michael, nobody calls me when they're playing well. Nobody,
same.
right? My phone rings when someone is usually way down, right?
hmm
And I will tell you hands down, I've been doing this for over 30 years now, hands down. The one thing that all of my calls have in common is they said to me, I have so many thoughts in my head, I don't even know how to clean it all up.
hmm
It's the single most common. They've gone to this instructor and that instructor. They've read this book. They've tried this. They've tried that. And this is not a knock on instructors because many of them are my very good friends. They're
Sure.
awesome guys. They're such good people. But I'm just saying it's very easy because it's very hard to admit that the real problem is that there's just so much noise in your head.
hmm
I mean, if there's a lot of noise in your head, there's nothing in your life that you're going to do well, much less make a putt.
hmm Yeah, that is some great stuff on putting. I feel like I can't wait to. I just finished the book, and I can't wait. I have a 2-day tournament coming up, and then a 3-day, and I'm just going to be focusing on those two things for putting. And I just feel like it's going to help so much. And then the targets, again, I think that was great too. But you also have a lot of good stuff in there about practice, because
Yeah.
we love to practice, but I mean, how many times? I love going to the driving range and just watching what people do. It's fascinating. I mean, it gives me content ideas because I'm like, what are we doing here? Just rapid fire golf balls, no warm up, no routines. Just it's terrifying. So you break down practice really, really well. So what are some practice keys to actually get your range game to travel with you to the golf course?
Yeah, yeah, great question. And I'm obviously the quality over quantity is, a mantra that's been around a while. I certainly didn't invent that, and that's a good one. But I think we are well past that, to be completely honest with you. Um, we are now at a point where going back to where this podcast started, where there's so much noise in our brain. But I want all of your audience to just ask this one. I want them to answer this question. Everything that you do in practice, all the balls that you hit or the drills that you do, if you're listening to this, answer this question for me. Where is all of that information going?
Mm.
Okay. Where is it going? It's
Going
not
in.
going into a hard drive like a thumb drive,
Yeah.
right? It's not going to your muscles because muscles have no storage or memory. They're not cognitive. They don't have
Mm.
neurons and synapses. It's only going to one place, and that's your brain. Okay. So the purpose of practice should be, and I want to make this very clear. To me, a good practice is doing practice is storing the practice in such a way that it is retrievable
Mm.
during game time. If practice is not retrievable during game time, it is useless. You are going to lose it before you even go to bed. So it is no longer enough to do quality over quantity. That to me is given. You got to do quality over quantity. But even that quality in the world that we live in now, within 1 to 2 hours after that practice is going to be diluted. So I give
Mm.
people an example. Let's say that you go at 8 o'clock in the morning till 12, and you have this amazing practice. You do all the drills that your instructor wants you to do, and you get it. You got good fields. You're hitting great shots. And at 12 o'clock, you're like, oh my gosh, what a great practice. I'm ready to play tomorrow. All right. You go have lunch, and during lunch, you get in an argument with one of your buddies. And your buddies, it's just an argument. Let's just go to politics. He says this and you say that. And I will tell you that because that experience, that inventory came after the practice, it is going to be stored in your brain at a much higher probability. And the only time that our brain stores memory is not even during practice or after practice, but it's when we're sleeping.
Mm.
So I tell people, record the key points of your practice, do a selfie video, write it down or something, then let it go. Then 30 minutes before you go to bed, move that inventory back on top because that's what you want your brain to store. Let me say this again loudly and clear. If you are doing practice in such a way that you're not guaranteeing that you're going to remember during the tournament, during your round, what you just did, then that practice is useless.
Mm.
You cannot just leave practice and say, oh, I will remember this. No, you won't. There's too much stimulation to the brain. It's the same tool that is storing everything else after 12 o'clock and before you go to bed that day.
Mm-hmm.
And some studies are showing that as high as 90% of everything that happens to you during a day is lost before you go to sleep. And only the most negative experiences of that day are being stored because those are related to your survival.
Gosh.
If at 2 o'clock, someone steals money from you at a certain location, your brain needs to store that memory at night to say, don't go near that place again.
Mm-hmm.
Or if someone lies to you, you found out someone lied to you about something, your brain at night is going to say, hey, that dude, don't trust him again. Right? This is a factory setting of the human brain. We are designed to record the negative stuff because we don't want to do them again.
Mm-hmm.
And the good stuff falls way down, especially when the amount of stimulation and inventory that we are creating during the course of each day, it's enormous. This is why yesterday feels like last week feels like last month, and last month feels like last year because so much inventory is created in seconds and minutes and hours. So the value of practice, I hate to say this, I really do. Like it doesn't give me any pleasure, but most of practice is useless, even if it's good, because we're not doing enough to make sure that it is stored in such a manner that when you are playing, you can retrieve, oh, on Tuesday when I was at the range doing this, this is what I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the big things. So I had 6 points from your practice chapter there, recording it, which I'm glad I do that relentlessly. It helps. I do have a content business, but I did that even before I started this brand just because I knew I'd forget. So recording is good. The no stress afterwards, I never would have known that. So that's a big one. So I kind of like now when I'm practicing, I want to build in like an hour buffer where we're just doing,
Yes,
normal stuff, but no like super high stress. You also mentioned, the end of the day. So what I started doing maybe 2, 3 months ago is I created highlight videos for every part of my game. So like if someone's out watching me in a tournament, they, record some shots and then maybe in practice or maybe I'm with a buddy, he films it. And what I have a driver video, I have a fairway wood video, I have an
I
iron,
love
wedges,
that.
putter. And I just did it just to like kind of feel good, just give myself a little boost. But now when you were going through that, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So kind
I
of like the
love that.
last hour of the day, I'm just like, let's say the driver's, giving me a little trouble in practice today. I'll watch that video in the last hour and kind of just give some good vibes and then maybe watch or check out some of those notes about, oh, it's just about the setup or it was about target selection. Is that kind of on the right path then to
That
document
is
the
more than
journey?
on the right path. That is absolutely brilliant. You are basically taking the right inventory that you want your brain to store because the brain has so much information to store from each day that
Mm-hmm.
it's got to choose on its own unless you tell it.
Mm.
Tell your brain in those last 30 minutes, hey, dude, bro, here's a good shot. Like with my 7 iron, I hit, cuts and fades and this and that. Or when I was putting, I felt this. Like when I go to sleep, that's what I want you to store. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being silly here. Like
Yeah.
tell your brain in those last 30 minutes before you go to bed, you can even close your eyes and replay those shots or those
Mm-hmm.
things. It's going to enhance that
Mm-hmm.
and that therefore, when you're out there playing and you're in a certain situation, you want your brain to automatically remember, oh, I know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, it goes right along with my yellow card, and I update that thing. This is the first one I kept it just as a thing because now I have it. I type it out every time I hit a good shot. Go into my 2025 yellow card.
Absolutely.
I have yellow cards for course specifics as well. So because I play a couple courses a lot here in Arizona, so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna look at that
Oh, that's
yellow card.
brilliant.
So you've
That's
helped so
brilliant.
much with that stuff, man. Like it's more than just a feel good though. Naturally, it does feel good to see yourself hit good shots, but you're saying from a brain perspective, this is fantastic. And you've
Yeah.
talked a lot about what you do before sleep, and that was where I wanted to make sure we covered too, because you talk about sleep. Obviously, we have the technology, we're overwhelmed all the time, like you mentioned, but the sleep can be really huge. So what was the 411 method, and kind of elaborate more on that? Because that's something I wrote a note card down next to my bed now
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
411. So you got note cards all over my house, man. You're really helping me out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me just make a point about those yellow cards because
Yeah.
they're just masterful. What is the difference between someone saying to you, yo, bro, you got this, keep going? Okay. Now that's a
Mm-hmm.
very positive, encouraging thing
Sure.
versus someone else saying to you, hey, just like that 7 iron you hit on number 4 yesterday. Is there a
Mm-hmm.
difference between those two inputs to your brain?
So different. I mean, I use it all the time. Like I'll use
Yes,
my yellow card, but even if I don't, I will use a former shot. So if I was on the fourth hole and I said same shot on four, same shot we hit on four, So I'm trying to get like a
exactly.
really recent memory and I update that thing, like
Right.
you said, so that way the memory stays super fresh.
Yes. When you insert that stimuli of your past good shot in your brain,
Hmm.
you are activating, you're polarizing, depolarizing a whole bunch of good neurons or memories or engrams that then tell your muscles, oh, I know how to do this. So that's
Mm.
what you're doing is absolutely brilliant. Now back to the sleep thing. So, 411 is a just a healthy habit, right? So 411 is I like for people before they go to bed. So in the last 10, 15 minutes of going to bed, to think about from that day, not yesterday, 2 weeks ago, four good things that happened to you on this particular day, one negative thing that happened to you on this day, and then one thing that you can do tomorrow about the negative one. So four positives. This is not gratitude. Gratitude is just being gratitude for anything and everything.
Okay.
These are four specific events that experiences that you experienced on this day, one negative one from the day, and something that you can do
Hmm.
about the negative one the next day.
Okay.
If you don't do 411, the factory setting, the default setting of your brain is 0, 100, 0,
Mm.
right? That's what it's designed to do. It's
Just
designed
because
to
it's a
inventory
survival
all of the negative.
mechanism. Right. It's just
Yeah.
trying to, okay.
It's going to go through all the 1,000 things that happened to you during the day and pick the
Hmm.
top 100 bad ones.
Mm.
And that's what it's going to store in you. And that's why we wake up in the middle of the night if we fall asleep, or that's why we can't fall asleep,
Mm.
right? So 411 is such a simple neurohack. It costs nothing, right? Most people would rather sell you a blanket, a pillow, a candle, a light, and some type of a music. Sleep is like a $6 billion business in the US because people are having a hard time sleeping.
Yep.
And yet, sleep is nothing more than your brain saying, I got too much stuff going on. How else can you wake yourself up? It's your own brain processing things it hasn't processed,
Hmm.
right? All of the spikes of the day. So by just telling your brain, whoa, 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 let's have a balance, brain, right? Yeah, it was a tough day, but good things happened to me too. Someone said thank you. I got a small email.
Hmm.
I went for a jog. Whatever. I had my favorite cup of coffee. I got a text from my son or my daughter or whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
So, you know, there's a reason I call this book Your Brain Swings Every Club, because it really is your brain that swings every club. If your brain is vibrating above 10 hertz, the higher it goes, which means the more negative the thoughts that you're having, the higher the probability that there will be some type of a neuromuscular disruption. Your
Mm.
backswing will be faster, your hips will turn faster. None of those things you intended to do. Well, then how did that happen?
Right. Gosh, that mind just getting in the way sometimes.
All the time. And again, that's life too.
Hmm.
Our life is really lived in our brain. It's our interpretation of everything that is happening to us. And so, golf is just one of those very unique sports. Again, I'm lucky enough to work with athletes in so many sports, and every athlete in every sport says, oh, my game is like life. And they're right. But I don't think there's a game out there that's more like life than golf
Hmm.
because you're on your own, right? And it's an endurance. It's 4.5, 5 hours, right? It's you versus something else. It's not you versus another human being. And it's this battle. Okay, how do I recover from a bad shot? You might have two or three good holes. Suddenly you have a bad shot that comes from nowhere.
Hmm.
Like golf is really an amazing metaphor, of life. And that's why it is, such a, I think Gary Player said that golf is a friendship factory. I mean, you learn so much about someone when you go and spend 5 hours with them on the course.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Oh man, there's so much good stuff here. I only got two more questions left. I hope people listen to that sleep one too. And actually, just to kind of close that loop, I remember on our first interview, you said something that you were like, "This is going to rile people up." You're talking about reliving bad shots before you go to bed. that
Mm.
like because you called them micro traumas. I actually quoted you in my second book because I love that one so much because I had a micro trauma come up when I had four putt, which led to the yips because I didn't ever process that memory. So that kind of goes hand in hand with that second one that you meant, or the first one that you mentioned, right? Kind of having, so that could be
Yes,
golf, like, hey, I really hit, like I missed a 2 foot putt, or I hit something really bad or something bad happened, like reliving that, because then that way you don't have that trauma pop up for you on the course
100%.
again. So that
100%. Absolutely.
okay.
Your subconscious is not your friend, right? There's a lot of inventory there, and it's going to show up
Uh-huh.
as soon as any stimuli smells like something from the past
Hmm.
negative, right? If
Yeah,
there's
gosh.
anything about current state that smells, tastes like, feels like some bad trauma, it will fire those neurons all the way up and say, whoa, 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 let's not do that again. And
Hmm.
now you're shaking.
Hmm. Gosh, that's absolutely wild. So before the last question, I had just I'm doing my goal right now is to get to a +5 handicap. I'm a +2.5, and I'm trying to get into uncharted territory. So I'm starting a new YouTube section on this, and I want to ask experts like you, from you're working with the top pros out there. What would you say is something, maybe one or two mental things? I feel like I'm doing as much as I can from all your books, but anything you think that you see from the top level players that would help me get to that elusive +5?
Yeah. So I don't have hard data on this, but typically with my tour guys, I try to talk to them after a round.
Hmm.
Especially if it's an early wave round and they have all afternoon. Sometimes I'll talk to their caddies, I look at their scorecards, and we'll replay the round, and see what happened where. And I've been doing this for years now, and I have found that, professional golfers like yourself, there are four strokes that you are wasting purely on mental, and two and a half of those four are on putting, and
Mm.
one and a half of those is your reaction to a poor shot,
Hmm.
right? So my suggestion to you is if you want to go from +2 to heck +7, you know, the amount of discipline that I would like to see from you on your putting, especially inside 10 putts, has got to be off the charts,
Okay.
right? Those putts you've got to make. Now, in a way that sounds obvious, so I don't want to be Mr. Obvious, but what I want to say is that mentally, when you have
Hmm.
putts like that, I recommend that you have a pre-shot routine. Like before you even start your routine, especially if you're waiting for your turn to putt, don't
Hmm.
waste that time. Repurpose that time. Do neuro hacks to make sure you're coming down as close to 10 hertz as possible, so
Okay.
that when you begin your neuro hack, but you can shave 2.5 strokes by making one or two more of those 8 to about 15-foot putts. They're makeable. Not all
Hmm.
of them, right? But 2.5 strokes, I found, like a guy will say, yeah, when I got over that putt, I just, in the last second, I thought about this. Or, I kept thinking about the last hole. I kept thinking, okay, I got to make this to make the cut, or I got to make this to blah, 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 blah. Right? So build your awareness. Like, think of 18 greens on a golf course as 18 stadiums where the gladiators go. That's your arena. At your level, and I'm not at your level, but at your level, golf is a putting contest. It really is.
Hmm.
The guys that, because you're going to strike the ball great, you hit it playing, all of you hit it far enough, all of you strike it hard enough, and you're going to give yourself lots of putts inside 10, 15 feet,
Hmm.
right? Somewhere between 6 and 10-ish, you'll have those putts. That conversion needs to go up, and it'll go up if you have the discipline to be green the minute that you step foot in that arena,
Mm.
right? So those
Green
greens
when you
are your
step on
arena.
the green. That's what I'm gonna tell myself.
The moment that you step on the green, make every second be purposeful to you.
Hmm.
You have no business looking at somebody else. You have no business to let your mind wandering. Why?
Mm.
I mean, within a few minutes, you'll be required to hit a super accurate shot to apply the right stroke, the right force on a ball to carry it over ground into a 4.5-inch hole. You need to use every second that is available to you if you're waiting on the putting
Hmm.
green to do that. Then the
Hmm.
second area is if you hit a bad shot, right? The amount of discipline that you need to exercise very quickly to extract that learning and diffuse it, right? So I've seen consecutive bad shots. I missed a 3 foot putt and then I pulled my drive on the next hole. That's got nothing to do with golf swing. That's your brain still saying, how the hell did you just miss a 2 foot putt? You just
Yep.
gave up one to the field.
Yep.
So that's where the other 1.5 strokes come in.
Hmm.
So at your level, I think it's two things. Now this is at your level. Now for me, I'm a six handicapper, so it's different for me. I don't have certain shots. I don't have a high draw. They're just certain shots, so I can't go after a back left pin. You know, but I mean, but for you who has all these shots, and you can, on any given day, you can compete with anybody. For you, it's those two things.
Love it.
Create a
That's
discipline
yeah.
around the greens and master the art of quick recovery.
I have gotten so much better with the recovery thanks to you, and I did some therapy, which also helped, and just kind of learning more about that, and it's made such a big difference. Ever since I read in your second book about your brainwave spike the most after a short miss putt, I instantly, when I'm playing with somebody and they miss a short one, I expect their next tee off to be pretty bad.
It's so
Usually,
predictable.
it's
It's so
so
predictable,
predictable.
isn't it?
It's so predictable. So yes, I love that. Oh my gosh, I could talk with you all day, man. Before getting to the last question, what's the best place to find you? Obviously, we got your book here is fantastic. Your Brain Swings Every Club. It's on Amazon. I think you said it's gonna be on Audible soon too. What else
Yeah.
should people follow you?
Yeah, so again, I'm on social media. I have a guy that does that for me because I'm too old. But at Dr. Izzy Justice or at Izzy Justice, I'm on X. The website is GYRA Golf, GYRA Golf.com. The new book, Your Brain Swings Every Club. Brad Faxon, who is probably one of my favorite people of all time. I love when he played. I love his commentary. He's such a good human being. He did the forward to the book. I mean, I have Jeff Smith, who's another good friend of mine from Radar Golf in it, Chris Como, Jim McLean. I have been humbled by their generosity to let me into the club, and they've collaborated with me on not just the book, but on other projects and some players. So I'm very grateful to people like them. So there's just a lot of good stuff. And then on chapter 8, it's all case studies. Like I have coaches from literally around the world
Yeah,
talking about lessons that they gave and how they changed the way that they teach. So it's not just for golfers, but also for instructors.
yeah.
Your
No, it's
brain really does swing every club.
it is fantastic. I mean, I can't recommend it enough. Right in line with all your other books. So your apps from one author to another. Congrats again on delivering such complex information in a simple way for us
Thank
non
you.
neuroscientists to be able to get the hang of it. So for the last question, we've talked about a lot of strategies, tee to green. We've talked about targets and everything. There's still those moments where you're standing over a shot and it does come in. Don't hit it left or don't miss this putt. We've tried. Maybe it's just your first tournament you got into. You're feeling the nerves, you're feeling the pressure. We're bound to have those sometimes still. I even still have them every once in a while. So it's like, what would you recommend? Is it just stepping off and then going through our whole thing again? Is there some sort of trigger? What if you just have that icky feeling like you said, your subconscious isn't your friend sometimes. So what if you kind of just have a feeling, well, how would you kind of recommend people to bounce back and reset so
I'll
they
give
can?
everybody, I mean, I charge lots of money for this, but I'm going to give it to you and your audience for free. Simple phrase: acknowledge and replace. Acknowledge the negative thoughts and replace it with a target. You don't need to start your routine again. Just turn your head, look at where you want the ball to go, suffocate your brain with that target. Everything that you can see about it, look back down and go.
Perfect.
Acknowledge. Don't fight the negative thoughts.
Mm,
That doesn't make you flawed. That just makes you human.
mm.
So don't fight it. Don't judge it. Acknowledge and replace. Acknowledge and replace.
Fantastic. I got another note card now I got to write down. Well, Dr. Justice, thanks so much for being back, man. Really, really appreciate it. Wishing you all the luck on this book. And anytime
That
you want
was
to talk
fun.
golf and the brain, you're always welcome over here. So thanks again.
Thank you. That was, as always, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me, Michael.